right, starting to see some of our attendees come in. Just going to give it a minute for everyone to join us, and we'll get started.
And then I have access to share my screen and all that, correct? So
you do? Okay,
I
good.
assume. I hope so.
If you mouse down over the bottom, it should come up. It should have something that says share screen. Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah, it does.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Our president, Kat Trago, is traveling for work today, so I'm stepping in to do introductions. I'm Elaine Russum. I'm the vice president of the Wisconsin chapter of ACEDS. And I want to thank you all for joining the call today with our esteemed colleagues from Lineal Services. But before we begin our presentation today, I wanted to invite all of you, and especially our Wisconsin friends and their friends, to our in-person networking event that we are going to have on October 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Godfrey and Kahn. That's downtown Milwaukee. So weather permitting, we're planning on using the rooftop patio to keep us as safe as possible. We will also serve food. We're looking at individualized, like charcuterie boxes for everyone. And we'll have drinks and some games, and of course, lots of prizes as well. Godfrey and Kahn is located at 780 North Water Street in Milwaukee. Please register ahead for this event so we make sure we have enough food and drink for everyone. So watch for an invite that should be coming out in your email today if you are a Wisconsin ACEDS member. Also, if you're a Wisconsin ACEDS member and you are not a member of our chapter, we would love it if you would just go out to the ACEDS website and register to be part of our chapter as well. This event is completely free thanks to our wonderful sponsors, Logility, Special Counsel, Data Narrow, Disco, and Everlaw. Our sponsors have been with us since day one, supporting us financially by speaking for our group and providing giveaways. So be sure to think of them for your future eDiscovery needs. And many thanks to our Lineal Services today for providing us with 3 fantastic individuals who are going to speak with us today. Our topic is Legal's Model Citizen, Understanding, Building, and Using AI Modeling in Legal. And in case you haven't heard, AI stands for artificial intelligence. It's scary and cool all at the same time. So at this time, I would like to introduce our speakers. We have Marco Nasca, Jeannie Soma, and Kit Mackey. And Marco, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Elaine. And I want to thank you and Adam for inviting us in to have this conversation today. We're really excited to talk to all of you and hopefully leave you with a little bit of better understanding of AI modeling and how you can employ AI modeling into your own practices out there. I will get, before I forget, real quick plug for the event that you guys have coming up at Godfrey and Kahn. Please go to it. I will tell you, there's probably no more beautiful spot in the city than Godfrey and Kahn's deck there outside overlooking Lake Michigan, and especially if the weather holds up and we have one of those beautiful fall days. There's no better spot in the city, and a great group all together. So real quick introduction to me and my crew here. My name is Marco Nasca. My title is the Chief Innovation Officer at Lineal, and as I often joke, that title means absolutely nothing to anybody other than my parents. They love the fact that I have a big title, but it really means nothing. What I do at Lineal is I work with our clients, both on the corporation and on the law firm side, and really help them design solutions to their needs across a whole number of different areas. Whether we're talking about eDiscovery and the things that we'll be talking about today, managed document review included into that, or if we're looking at things like information governance or robotic process automation or legal operations technologies. I've been in this space now for over 20 years. I've built companies, I've sold companies. I'm back with a group of folks here at Lineal that we had built a company called Iris Data Services back in 2007 that we ultimately sold to Epic. We sort of reinvented ourselves about a year and a half ago in the acquisition of Lineal, and have built Lineal into a global player now. I reside just west of Milwaukee. I'm in Pewaukee. Have been here for almost 10 years now, not quite, but almost 10 years. And on the call with me today, I brought folks that are really subject matter experts, and folks that I'll have them introduce themselves to you. But first, why don't we start first with Jeannie Soma. Jeannie, if you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the folks.
Sure. Thanks, Marco. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeannie Soma. I am the Chief Legal Officer and Head of Managed Review for Lineal Services. I've been in the eDiscovery and legal technology space for about 15 years, serving as both providing services to clients around legal advice, document review, that sort of thing, and then also serving as a GC for a software company prior to then coming to Lineal, where I also head up the legal function. I am very excited about using technology in our practice, and so I'm sure you'll get that from me today. And I think importantly for this presentation, I'm also a law professor at New York Law School. I teach eDiscovery and legal tech, legal operations in the business of law. So I'll do a lot of the academic slides today. And if anyone has questions, I really welcome you to ask them as we go, or post them in the chat, or you can even follow up with me after. I love talking about these things. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you, Jeannie. She is definitely the academic one in the group here. The super technical one is Kit Mackey, and I'll have Kit introduce himself.
Thanks, Marco. Hello, everyone. I'm Kit Mackey. I'm the CTO at Lineal. I as well have been in the eDiscovery industry for really my whole career, about 20 years, which coincides with basically the beginning of eDiscovery, the beginning of time in this industry. I've been very much on the software side. So started as the first employee of a company called Relativity, where I was a big part of designing and developing those feature sets that really came about as a way to manage the workflows within eDiscovery, review documents, search documents, batch documents, and managed the product development team there for 10 years. In 2012, I left to co-found a company called NextLP, which was a very AI-centric technology company. We explored many avenues in terms of how technology could be applied to the eDiscovery and investigation processes. I spent 7 years there working with data science teams and AI experts to develop those tools. I joined Lineal about 2 years ago with Marco and Jeannie, and the main why I'm really excited about being part of this organization is we are taking next steps to figure out the best way to apply artificial intelligence to use the technology in the best ways to reduce the burden of the process, to reduce the efforts and costs, and really reduce the risk and gain understanding about the situations in the discovery process.
Well, thank you so much, Kit. Kit is very humble. I mean, you talk to the folks over at Relativity and K-Cura, and they'll tell you about the 10 years that he essentially, led all development and, really the beginning of what, became Relativity and what we utilize today. So we are tremendously, privileged to have him as our Chief Technology Officer. So, what we were going to do today is we wanted to talk about, keep things at a high level. We've got a limited amount of time, but we wanted to really talk about artificial intelligence and what it means to us within the eDiscovery space. And to do so, we're going to take a dive into, understanding current workflows, how folks, utilize different workflows around TAR 1.0, 2.0, and then what we're doing around NLP, natural language processing. And really kind of talk about the differences between those two, some maybe typical use cases, and what and the benefits and the defensibility of these tools. And really from there, we want to really start looking at what is the art of the possible and the things that we see that, can be utilized through some simple applications within your own practices. And then to kind of finalize things, really talk about the art of the possible, right? And how the sentiment and emotional analysis and portable, repeatable models can make sense. But really through it all, I want to make sure that we're taking time to answer questions that you guys have. I know this is a very difficult format to have a two-sided conversation. But if there are questions, please drop them down into the chat box. And if Elaine or Adam or someone could just keep an eye on that. And if they see questions within the chat, we'll try to make sure to take those as we move along. So really kind of to begin things off, Jeannie, I'm going to lean on you a little bit. And let's talk about, kind of the traditional eDiscovery workflow, and probably something that most of the folks on this call are familiar with.
Sure. So just kind of to level set, right? When we talk about the traditional eDiscovery workflow, we're talking about data collection all the way to production. So starting off with data collection, all of the forensics and going to identify and get what you need, processing that data so you can do something with it later, searching and filtering through that data so you can hopefully look at less than what you collected, putting those results somewhere where you can actually do the review, assess the privilege, find your facts, and then being able to produce an exchange. And the reason we put this graphic up to start is we want to make sure that when we're talking about AI in eDiscovery, we're talking about the whole gamut. We're talking about touching this entire chart, not just one piece or another. And I think collectively, when we discuss this, there seems to be a focus in that data searching and filtering, and almost to the point where you're forgetting everything else. And so we wanted to make sure we brought this front and center and made the point that AI is possible in all of these places, not just one or a few. And so this is where we're starting. So for those of you who do this every day, you understand these things and probably feel the same pain that we do, but just so we can all wallow in it together, we wanted to talk about the limitations with traditional eDiscovery. So first and foremost, my least favorite thing that's ever happened, traditional keyword searching. So trying to make up terms that will hopefully capture what you need and then running them until you die. Data volumes are increasing, but timeframes are staying the same. And in fact, getting smaller, right? As the federal rules are changing and as rocket dockets are getting more prevalent, we have more data of more types and less time to get through it. There's also evolving data types that, although we use it every day, aren't necessarily experts in it. I could tell you all about producing emails in my sleep, and probably do, right? If you ask my husband, I'm sure that's all I talk about in my sleep is emails. But talking about things like Slack or videos or even emojis is a bit different. And so we're always having to adapt to that new data. There's also that idea that, documents are just that, right? They're just written records and they don't necessarily give you that full view into the concepts and the people and the events in your data. So even though you have your data and you've culled your data and you've organized your data, it doesn't magically tell you what it says. And so it's still not necessarily the easiest process to get that speed to insight. There's no sentiment or emotion analysis in a traditional eDiscovery framework. There's no pattern analysis. There's no anomaly detection. It's just kind of, here's your data, do with it what you will. And then the most painful part, and I love that Marco bolded this, you have to reinvent the wheel for every project. It's not something that is iterative or learns from itself. It's just this constant, do it over and over and over again, right? So this is the traditional kind of eDiscovery pain points. So moving on to that, we want to move into this next generation world, right? Get rid of the traditional pain and do something better. So again, just from like a level setting perspective, we wanted to talk about what we mean when we say AI. There's the joke that corresponds with Mike Myers and his coffee talk, right? Rhode Island. It's neither a road nor an island. Discuss. So artificial intelligence, it's neither artificial nor is it intelligent. So what actually is it? Well, it's an algorithm that's applied to any legal process. And right, remember back to that the chart that we did of the entire eDiscovery process. So it's any part in that chart, right, that allows for automation and workflow efficiency. That's all it is. It's not some magical robot. It's not some crazy black box thing you don't understand. It truly is taking an algorithm, being able to apply it to a process, and out of that, you are able to automate and bring through efficiency. So the goal, our pie in the sky really as practitioners should be having pre-configured technology. So, we're going to refer to them as AI apps, but basically these tools that you have that can be applied to a project from the outside that gets you that speed to insight quickly. It gets you the insight into data. And more importantly, that you aren't having to reinvent every time, right? You can apply them and you're innovating as you go. You're not restarting as you go. And the point we wanted to make here is that AI can be built into your existing eDiscovery workflows and products. You don't have to completely change what you're doing. And that's the beauty of it. And that's, again, where we think about what's possible. Yes, it's also possible to completely change your process and adapt to this tool and change your whole life. But what's more practicable is you do what works for you and you make incremental changes, incremental steps to make that better. And that's where AI can really help, amplify your intelligence rather than kind of, make your process clunkier and harder to deal with. So, what's needed to build and configure and train it? And I'll go through this a little bit, and then Kit, I would love for you to share your thoughts on this as well, because Kit builds our AI. Just so so the audience understands our dynamic. Not only are we best friends, but I have these ideas, and really they're not ideas, they're complaints, right? I start complaining about something. This is really hard. And then I go to Kit, and Kit's like, okay, tell me what's hard. Tell me what you're trying to do, and let me figure out how to solve that for you. And the way that he does that is he takes data, he takes human input, coding decisions, my feedback, both, and adds machine learning. And this is how you create a good AI app, AI technology, AI model. And so the best part about this is, right, you can take data from historical archived cases, preserved work product. You don't necessarily have to start from scratch in order to start collecting data to solve this problem. You can then strap on things that are current, ongoing matters that you're already working on, and strap on that data. And then you can also be really, really deliberate about sample test cases. So, we'll talk about this a little later, but we built a privilege model. And so not only can we use our old cases and even our ongoing cases to try and develop this priv model, but we can also be deliberate about, we have a multi-jurisdictional, project with 10 aligned counsel. This will be perfect to test this product and make sure it works properly. So that's kind of the high level, but Kit, if you want to dig into this a little bit more, I think that would be great for the audience.
Yeah. So, it's when we look at this, this when I look at my job, right, and what I try and do every day, we build systems have inputs and there's outputs, right? And so I'm always thinking, okay, how can we gather an input and get a good output? And then we have problems, right? People have problems. Jeannie has problems. People who are working in the eDiscovery world have problems, and we're trying to build solutions to those problems. So that's always I'm always asking the question, okay, we have problems that we need a solution to, and we have inputs that can help us, that we can get from people that can get a good output. So now it's oftentimes what can we ask from the case team, from the attorneys, to go into an algorithm to get a good output. And now what's really exciting about where we are today is there's more and more technology that's available to build better machines to do a lot with that input to get a great output. So I often just start with search, right? And Jeannie says, search it's painful. You're guessing, you're making a guess. You're like saying, okay, if I'm looking for this type of information, what would people say? Right? They would maybe say this, and they would never misspell that word. They would never spell color with an O-U-R. I'm sure they just spell it color. So that's what I'm going to search for. Well, obviously those are incorrect assumptions. So we look at search. Now, when you tell a machine, okay, I'm searching with these terms, that's actually a great input. That's actually a really, valuable piece of information to build a process around. So it is, we say model, we say that word, and in many cases that is a model, because when you say these are the search terms that I'm looking for, You're informing the machine. That's your mental model of what you're looking for. So how can we, one thing that's just an example of how we're thinking about the problem. We're taking some information from people who are knowledgeable, and we're extrapolating from that. Maybe we'll drop a thesaurus on top of that, right? That's an advancement of technology. Maybe instead of asking for your search terms, we'll ask you to look at these documents and tell us whether or not they are the types of documents you're looking for. And then we're building a more advanced model. Instead of search terms, we're using documents as the input to find a better output. So that's kind of a way that's just by example, a way that the technology evolves and AI and the technology becomes smarter and eventually gets the name AI, artificial intelligence, whether or not that's accurate, but that's, I think the end goal of all of this is to have a machine that is artificially smart. So I hope that's what you're looking for, Jeannie, but
that was great.
About it.
That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
Sure.
So here's something a question we get a lot. And so Marco included this, and it's really important to talk about. So we're talking about how great AI is. It makes your life efficient and it makes things easier and it helps you get things done faster. But we're lawyers, right? Or we're legal technologists, or we generally are working in legal services. So the big question is AI defensible? The answer is yes. The answer is yes if created correctly, right? You don't want to go down to the ABC AI store and buy something off the shelf, but the people that work in this space, who sell this technology, who consult on this technology, have created things that are completely defensible. They are reasonable. They meet all the legal standards. And we put a couple notes here just to get you thinking about defensibility and most importantly, the questions that you want to ask to ensure that whatever tool you're using is defensible. So, first off, there's a note here. It says all the data and documents, including full metadata and text, are available in the eDiscovery repository for review should you need them. What that means is whatever tools you're using should be leveraging these data points, but also it's not that these data points disappear if they're not leveraged. So, for example, in email threading, which is a very basic technology, but email threading cares about your senders, your recipients, your date sent, your subject, and then the text in the body. It doesn't necessarily care about your file type. Am I an MSG or am I an HTML or am I something completely different? It doesn't care about the length of your document. It doesn't care about who saved it last. It doesn't care about its file path. And that's because the threading technology only cares about the pieces of that document that make it an email and relate to threading. But just because your threading technology doesn't care about your file path doesn't mean your file path doesn't exist, for example. So we want to be thinking about the tools in a way that, do they complement what I'm doing? And are they destroying the underlying data? If the answer is yes and no, then you're fine. Also, AI is deployed to streamline review and interact with relevant data more quickly. It's not deployed to make decisions for you that are completely, thoughtless or random. Right? That's not really the point. So when we're applying technology, it's the same thing as when I set my thermostat. I typically go to bed around the same time every day, and I wake up around the same time every day. And so my thermostat goes colder and warmer based on that. Sometimes I wake up earlier, sometimes I wake up later, but generally that's the right time, right? That's a reasonable effort to program that thing. And the idea here is the same, really. If you're using a tool that is meant to generally aid this problem that you're having and you use it consistently and well, it's all defensible. Lucky for us, there's no perfect standard. And until there is, we're pretty safe using a lot of cool technology. So we're going to do a quick rundown. And although this is a very text heavy slide, I'm not going to spend too much time on this unless someone has a question. And I see the Q&A is live. So if you do, please feel free to drop something in here. But we kind of want to, set the stage of what are analytics versus kind of what AI is, and how do we parlay into using the things that are more advanced, more interesting, and more helpful. So basic analytics, we think of this as table stakes. You probably need these things in order to just be generally efficient, and they are inherent in the documents you already have. these tools just extract this information and present it in a way that's meaningful. So basic analytics attack your content. So what's in your document? Not what your document's about, but literally the parts of the document. So that's things like email threading. So putting email conversations together in the way that they naturally existed in the world, being able to sort them by last to first, first to last, have the attachments in line in a programmatic way so that you don't just get a pile of documents and have to filter through for the different parts of the email. Duplicate detection, so both on the file level. So I send Marco, this PowerPoint and ask him for feedback. I send Kit the same PowerPoint. They're duplicates, being able to group documents together, basically. Identify that they're similar, whether they're exactly the same or kind of the same, put them in the same bucket so someone can make some good decisions on those documents. Language detection, geographic analysis, even timeline analysis, it's all the same thing. You're looking at metadata of a document about, what is the language type? And that's literally just looking at the characters to see what it is. Where did this document originate? You'll see that a lot with images. Where did I take this picture? My iPhone does that for me all the time, right? You took this picture in Cranford, New Jersey versus, Milwaukee. And then timeline. When was this document generated? When was it sent? When was it saved? All of those things will give you an idea of the genesis of said document. And then communication and domain analysis is who's talking to who and what companies are talking to what companies. And this is going to be the base of your things like privilege. When are you breaking privilege versus keeping privilege? Bad acting. When am I sending emails from my work to my Gmail? When am I using an inappropriate email address to communicate, that sort of thing. But like I said, those things are pretty table stakes, right? We all fundamentally understand them, and a lot of technologies out there can present this information. Where it gets cool is when you move into the second portion of the slide, where it gives you that advanced intelligent analytics. So now we're moving closer to the AI version of these things. And this is about your context. So this is it's not what your document has in it, but it's what is your document about. So this is where we can do some neat things like conceptual searching. So keyword expansion. I want to use the word run as a search term. Keyword expansion will help me use the term run, ran, running, maybe even jog. Be able to be that thesaurus, like Kit said, right? Drop a thesaurus on top of it. Clustering gives me the ability to lump documents together that have a similar context, but maybe are not necessarily similar in nature. So this PowerPoint and then any of the similar PowerPoints where we pulled information from or articles that we read in order to put this together would all be one concept. So it's the idea of putting documents together that fundamentally are about the same thing, so you can get a good feel for a certain concept. Textual classification is, think of that as one step further, right? Now you can start to organize documents, not just by virtue of what's in them, but your decisions about them. So for things like predictive coding and TAR, you, the human, are looking at the documents and saying, oh, I really care about all the documents that are talking about this analytics presentation, but I don't necessarily care about documents that are talking about work today. I'm not interested in that, right? And the more you do that, the more these types of tools will learn that and start serving you up documents that are more about your presentation, less about work. And then the last point here is tone and emotion. So this is what we call sentiment analysis. But this is technology that's used to identify how somebody feels about what they're saying. So it's one step further than the context. The context is what I'm saying. The concern is how I feel about that thing. Am I angry when I'm saying it? And do I have motive to do something bad? Do I have an opportunity to do something bad? Is there an intent there? Or am I just stupid, right? And did I just accidentally do this thing? But coupling these things together, now I think you can see right now they're starting to tell a story. So I've threaded this conversation together so I can look at it all in the same place. I've brought in similar concepts. So now I can see conversations that are about the same thing. I can see when they're between the same people, right? I can also start to say, I care about this, I care about that, or I don't care about this. And then last but not least, I can see when this conversation takes a turn, right? We're having a totally fine conversation and then we start fighting about the last slide. So emotionally, the entire trip of this conversation has changed. But now we're starting to unearth a story about these documents rather than just having this pile that we have to slog through and produce in that short period of time. So thank you for bearing with me while I did that. But the idea here is that we wanted to set the stage of, like, again, table stakes versus a little bit more mature technology. So now you can, thinking about what's here, now we want to think about, what's next, right? What's better than even these things? And we have an answer for you.
Yeah. And so, and real, to kind of make that transition, Jeannie, one of the questions that I often get asked is, how do we make that transition, right? If we're doing things in sort of a traditional fashion, or even, applying some level of TAR 1.0 or to continuous active learning, how do we make that transition? And as we were talking the other day, in terms of analogizing it, this concept came up, right? This idea of, how did the iPhone become as predominant as it has become in the world? And, as we started looking at, the concepts behind it, it really kind of made sense. And Jeannie, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we talk about this a lot. And, again, this goes back to when I was saying, when I find a problem and I bring it to Kit and I want a solution really quickly, the way I also think about this is I want to interact with data in a natural way. I want to have a solution that's natural to me and that makes my life easier, and that I don't have to adjust to the solution adjusts to me, right? We talked about this 3 slides ago. The best AI fits in your process, not vice versa. And so, when we build things, and when a competent, eDiscovery company builds solutions, they should be thinking about these things. They should be thinking about what does the consumer actually need? How can I be part of their process? And how can I integrate myself right into their life? So yeah, I absolutely just kind of love this thought, and I love this comparison for that reason.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we think back to the iPhone, when it first came into the market, 2007 or so, I mean, what made it revolutionary was that the design was friendly and it was unintimidating. It was intuitive. It just integrated with what you were already working with. So, I mean, we already had cell phones. Flip phones were out there. I had a flip phone. The iPod had become, pretty prevalent. But what it did is it started to transform how we interacted with information and data. And it was simple enough that, my mother has an iPhone, right? I could teach my mother how to use an iPhone, but it had so much advanced technology in there that experts, wanted to have this device, but they also wrapped it around a support system in place. And where we see AI moving forward, and hopefully, by the end of this conversation, you'll see it as well, is that we want to do the exact same thing. We want to make the design as friendly and as unintimidating as possible. So when Elaine, at the beginning of the conversation, you talked about, AI is scary. The way we're really hoping that we can do is that we can actually take away that fear and really make it more unintimidating and intuitive, and create the user interface that folks are familiar with, because our industry is familiar with relativity and tools like NextLP, and they're available in the marketplace. And we can then transform how folks interact in the legal space with data, with media, with information, and make it as simple as possible for folks that have maybe a little trepidation, but can make it as technologically robust as folks want it to become, and then provide the subject matter expertise around it so that folks feel like they're supported, that they're shepherded in the process. So the next set of slides that we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to, this is where really it's that the friendship between Jeannie and Kit working together in collaboration is the application, is the AI applications, and what is possible with these types of AI applications. So, we here at Lineal, and this is not a plug for Lineal, but it's really, we wanted to show you some of the different solutions that we've built here, and that we know that other providers in the space have created, but we call it this ECAI bundle. And it's really designed around a number of different applications that, help our clients get, from now to next, and be more efficient by using these simple to run applications on it. And Jeannie, I think that, you're involved in these in this technology the most. Maybe this is a good place for you to kind of hop in.
Yeah, thanks, Marco. So I'm going to describe this from my seat as a GC, because I think that it's the best way to go about, looking the best. When I think about data on projects, I think about the old school way of doing things, which is I have a pile of data, I'm going to run search terms on it, or even I'm going to run tar on it. I'm going to do something to it to make it small once. And then once I make it smaller, I'm then going to review it. And that's fine. It's definitely cheaper than reviewing all of it, but it's not the best way to do it, right? Silly example, but really, I think makes the point. When I'm cleaning my room, which is typically a mess all the time, I don't just put everything away all at once. Like, it doesn't just magically kind of go where it's going, right? I have to, put the laundry away that's been folded for 4 days. I have to put my shoes where they belong. I have to put the jewelry away. I have to move the dog's bed. There's probably 10 different things I have to do before the room is put back to rights. And if I only did one of those things, the room would look a lot better, right? And depending on how messy that thing is that I'm doing, that's how nice the room's going to look. But if I can do all 10 of them, then the room's going to look really nice. And if I can do all 10 of them in the right order, I've now cut my time in half or in a third of how long it took me to get to the end. And so I think about, we think about data reduction the same way. We don't want to just reduce it once and then go and review it and pay for it. We want to think about continually assessing that in that data set, right? Being thoughtful about it constantly through its entire life cycle and applying AI in a meaningful way to each step. So let's talk about the graphic on the screen just so you understand what it's trying to show you. So here there's 5 different tools or processes that are listed in this funnel. And you can see the way that it's trying to show you a reduction, right? So the most at the beginning, and then you apply bot detector, and then you do threading, and then you do priv, and then you do Lyra, and then you have the rest of it. And as you apply a new technology, that population gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Your efficiency is growing as you continually apply these tools. And what I think is really neat about changing the mindset and applying these things in a stepwise approach, rather than just choosing one tool and kind of foisting it in here, is that you get to be deliberate at each step of the way as to how you're going to reduce. And this goes back to the defensibility. Again, defensibility is about reasonableness. It's not about perfection. It's reasonable to have a tool or a process or both that attacks a specific problem, use it on the specific problem, and report the efficacy. That's incredibly reasonable. And so that's what we're thinking about, right? And that's as lawyers, practitioners, technologists, that's what we should be thinking about, attacking each problem on its own with a specific tool, right? If I have a hammer, every problem seems like a nail. But if I have a hammer and a screwdriver and a wrench, now I can solve lots of different problems. So that's the idea, being able to custom build your program, whether it's by client, by your entire data set, by case, and be able to pick at it one by one with the tools in your arsenal to make this more efficient through the life cycle of your project, through that whole eDiscovery workflow. I feel like I got on my soapbox there, Marco, but you know how excited I get about this.
I know. Well, you're passionate about it. I love that.
I love saving money. It's my favorite. I feel like if anyone else here is a GC or in-house counsel, I feel like we're kindreds, right? I hate spending money. So this is how I try to spend less.
So let's talk a little bit about each one of these, about these tools and how these applications work and what type of AI is running on the background and how we're utilizing the artificial intelligence. So Jeannie, Kit, whoever would like to kind of grab the reins of the horse here.
I'll help Jeannie out here. She's been the captain of this call so far. So yeah, bot detection is, again, we talk about AI, and one of the things that Jeannie was talking about was the story, right? And the story of the data. And many times, a story is made up. We say who, what, where, when, why, right? And as part of the AI picture has been this communication analysis. Who is talking to who, right? And Out of that, that understanding of who is writing this email, this person or this email address is sending to these people. Part of that is this ability to understand, okay, these are email addresses that are sending a lot of emails, but nobody is ever responding back to them. So it's a social network concept that there's this kind of hierarchy of, and you may have heard of, like, there's influencers in a social network. There's people who are often their information's forwarded, or when one person says something, everyone else responds. They are like the top of the social network. Well, those people that send or say a lot and nobody cares, nobody ever replies back to them, they're at the way bottom of the social network. And they are what we call bots. So in the end, they fit the profile of a bot. An informational email, your Groupons, your United Airlines, your Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom Club, Facebook, right? So that is essentially a combination of the communication analysis with a simple algorithm. How many times did that communicator write, and how many times did someone reply back to them that helps us unearth bots? And this is a way that we can speed up the process by identifying them and saying, hey, these are all the senders that are likely bots. Take a look at their data and quickly push that aside. And I'm sure you guys can imagine that, as time has gone on, the amount of emails that are, the percentage of data that is sent by a bot has grown. And we're seeing somewhere between 10 to 15% of all communication is coming from a bot. So that's a huge, right off the top savings that we can, put to the bottom line and say, hey, these are all bots. You've dropped your total cost of review by 10 to 15%.
Yeah. And historically, we've done something similar to this, but we've done it in a manual fashion, right? We've done some sort of, domain analysis, which is A, time consuming, B, it's never, very reliable, and B, sometimes we pull in information that we would actually really need. What Kit, and you could discuss this, what you really designed around Bot Detector was, because you're creating the social networking scale or the score, you're able to really, hone in very quickly and literally within minutes on what is a bot and what is not a bot.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the beauty of advancements in technology. You're doing the same thing. You're trying to accomplish the same thing, but doing it much faster and much more reliably.
Yep, exactly. The next area is PrivFinder, and this was Jeannie. This was your baby. This is something that came out of a pain that you were seeing from the document review team, and working closely with Kit, you guys came up with this concept.
So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if any of you on the call have either tried a privilege model or been demoed a privilege model or have heard about privilege models. But if you have, then you would know every other solution on the market for a privilege model is selling modeling, is selling a text type of natural language processing CAL process model, where you have to go into a data set as a subject matter expert, read documents, train documents by saying, yes, I'm privileged, no, I'm not. And the outputs are okay, they're okay. Kit, when I started at Lineal, Kit came to me and said, I'm building this privilege model and I want it to actually work. How would we do that? Like what would work here? And we talked a lot about it. And what we landed on was the simplest answer in the world. Can you mimic my thought process? Which I guess is not simple because the inside of my head is terrifying. But from a lawyer's perspective, can you mimic my thought process about privilege? And he's like, well, yeah, tell me what it is. So I did. Privilege is about the communicators, who's talking, or are you talking about what someone said? Is that person a lawyer or a legal representative? Do they hold privilege? And is what they're talking about business or privilege related? And then the last piece is, does the privilege stay? Has it been, has it been shared? Has it been broken? Or is it safe? Is it aligned? And once we talked about those things, Kit said, Yes, I can absolutely do that. I can attack the part of a document that tells me who the communicator is or who's being communicated about, all the different aliases of that person. So we maintain privilege, whether it's my personal email address or my work email address, when I'm talking about something privileged versus when I'm not, and what hat am I wearing? Am I aligned? Am I in-house counsel? Am I adverse counsel? Am I just a random person in the world? You know, who am I to this scenario? And so that's where the Priv Finder, Priv model, that's how it was born. So here's how you use it, right? And I think, again, this is a very good story about how we can use AI in our practice in a way that fits our current process. The way the Priv Finder works is we run data through the system, and the system will automatically identify privilege actors. And that's because we have an entire database of law firms and other legal companies like service providers, for example, that if you work for one of those places, have a domain from one of those places, you're identified. There's also ways to identify a privilege sender by their footer, so their signature block, the name of their title in HR, those sorts of things. And then you can also add in your own information. If I have a list of in-house counsel, I can add that into Priv Finder, and I can have those things shown to me. And there's a keyword portion that's much better than your average privilege with intuitive confidential. It's actual phrases and terms that lend themselves to privileged documents. And then all of that is fielded in relativity, so that I can not only see if a document is likely privileged by its score, but then I can see why. What's the reason? Oh, it's about a law firm, or it's about an attorney, or it's about an in-house counsel. What are the domains that are in here that could be potentially privileged? Who are the attorneys? Who are the people that work at these places? And what are the keywords? And because all this information is fielded for you, you can start to make some good decisions about it. You know what? Kit Mackey at Lineal Services, yes, that person works at a legal vendor. That's privileged, absolutely. Kit Mackey, when he was at Next LP, not so much. This is something different. These documents are not privileged. And so it gives you all of these data points to make good decisions. And the best part about it is, and really of any AI, right? Again, like Marco said, not a lineal plug, but more just how to think about these things. It's not a black box. I understand what's happening here because it's fielded, it's reportable for me. And I can also take it downstream, right? I can do a privilege log, an automated privilege log with this information. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. This screen that Marco's showing you is the input screen. And again, I think this goes to the simplicity of it. AI is not some robotic thing that you can't explain. AI should just be a repetition of your own thought process. And so this is the interface. This is the reporting. So it's telling you, here we have these domains. If you pop them open, the Aiken Gump domain, here are the attorneys that we found at Aiken Gump. And you can go ahead and move them into the proper, are they a law firm? Are they a line party? Are they in-house? So that you have a really robust way of reporting privilege. And these are simple steps, again, really easy to understand, but very powerful and will make your life a lot easier. And it's reasonable, right? It's reasonable to do a screen for Aiken Gump and then to put that person in the right section and then report on it.
So we have, I think we have 3 more AI examples of different applications, and I think they're probably 3 of the most interesting and most useful, given where we are in time, and I think we're doing pretty well timing wise right now on this presentation. Lineal Chatcraft. How was the concept behind Chatcraft? How was that born, and how does it employ AI?
Yeah, so the about 2 years ago when we started up at Lineal, it was apparent that the industry was missing the right technical solution for managing chats and collaborative data. Chat and collaborative data, for many years we've been talking about email and Word documents, right? And that's been the rich source of information that could potentially hold relevant data. Well, obviously, we all live in a world where the majority of our communication at this point is probably not in email. It's occurring in Slack and iMessage and Teams, right? And so it was really important that we could, manage that data through the entire electronic discovery process. So that's not a simple problem. You've got a forensics angle where you have to collect the data. You need to be able to normalize the data in a way that it can be understood by the review systems, and then you need to review it. Well, the challenge with review is, again, all the systems have been built for built for email and Word documents. They haven't been built for these ongoing streams of chat communication that goes on for years. So, that was the challenge put in front of us. And, at Lineal, we hit that head on, right? We really made sure that we could collect the data, made sure that we could put it in a format that could be reviewed, and then made the experience natural. And this is really, this is probably the least AI thing we do. But I think it's speaks to more, usability and usefulness, right? So put it in a way where you can review the communications as they occurred as somewhat a continuous stream of back and forth, but then center in on a set of the conversation and say only these 5 messages are responsive and interesting to the matter. And then only those 5 messages can be produced. They can be easily found when you come back and say, give me all the responsive data. And, it's all managed within, the common eDiscovery tools like Relativity. Let me keep going. Snippets?
Well, I know both of you love it, so.
Sure. So snippet. So again, this is it has been again. Jeannie came to me with a problem. We use search terms. We need search terms. All our clients rely on them to understand the data set, to reduce the universe of data. The problem is, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, when I enter a search term, is it a good search term? How do I know if this is a good search term? Is it bringing back important information, or is it bringing back noise? And so, with snippets, we invented a way to understand the context in which search terms are used. So instead of just getting back a document saying this document has this term, yes or no, we provide a list of the snippets. So the documents, as where each term hits in the document, we provide it in a snippet. So that word in context, and list those in association with each document. So now you can quickly scan in a list instead of opening up each document, trying to find the search term where it hit, looking at it and saying, no, I wasn't interested in, the state of Washington. I was interested in Bill Washington, who committed massive fraud. Then, this is a bad term. So it's a bad document. Now you can scan them all in a list, pick out all of those times where that term hit in context in a valuable manner, and move those through your review process in a much more efficient way.
Then the last, and I guess the most recent application that was announced is Lineal Images. So whoever wants to take this.
I'll just keep going because I love it. I kind of love this one. So images have again been tough to search because all of our tools are and most of the tools in our industry are text based. You're searching based on text. Images have kind of been the redheaded stepchild. Because they don't fit into that box. They don't fit into that. This is a document that has text, and I really need to read what people are saying. And I need a full screen to understand that document. Images, you can just, what a picture says 1,000 words. I'm full of in these euphemisms, analogies. I don't know right now. So you can look at an image and quickly know what it's about. Past that, recent technology has been invented to categorize images. If you go to Google Images, you search for something, you go to Google, they all come up. I search for sky, I see lots of images about sky. Well, that technology is available to us today. And this is like the closest, this is now the closest thing to artificial intelligence. I think it's amazing that technology can understand what's in an image. So we've applied that into the eDiscovery workflow. Now you run a search you say, I want to understand the images in this 100,000 documents, and they come up in this screen, and they're organized like this. They're organized by what they're about. Here are all the images that show pictures of the outdoors. Here are all the pictures that show images of this that are about the sky. You can use this to cull information. So you can quickly search for all the logos and all the logos in your set. So all the footers attached to emails will come up and you can quickly set those aside. Perhaps you're looking for signed documents. You can search for handwriting or signatures, and all the documents that have anywhere in them have somebody's signature will come up. Or perhaps it's a construction matter where there was a foundational issue during the build. Did anybody know about that? You can search for those and they'll quickly come up. So this is a way that we, I think in a really kind of the best way yet for at Lineal, combined artificial intelligence with workflow to reduce the time and effort to get to the bottom of what we're looking for.
Yeah, no, we've seen, I think the construction example is spot on. Intellectual property, and being able to search for, different notes and images within intellectual properties, trademark. I've had a number of folks talk to us about trademarks around this, and I agree with you. The ability to cluster those documents, review them, batch them out, review them, and then move has been is pretty impressive. So we've got about 5 minutes left for questions, and stop sharing my screen here. I know if anyone has some thoughts about questions, please please put them in the chat. I see Adam, you mentioned that this looks like some of the deposition transcript tools, Snippets does. I agree that there are components to that, and being able to search across data and find the context of those.
And we had somebody also ask if this recording would be available afterwards. If you've signed up, we will provide a copy of the recording for you so that you can watch the playback. It should be available in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Panelists, this is Adam. I'll ask a quick question just for the group. Generally speaking, what would you say would be a good data set size? And I know this is probably a question you get a lot, but is there like a size that's too small to utilize AI?
It's a really good question, and the answer is no. It doesn't matter how many documents are there. At least the proper tool, right, can solve your problem whether you have large documents or small. Now there is a consulting piece to it that if you had 5,000 documents, I wouldn't recommend running continuous active learning, for example, or well, that's TAR 1.0, right? Something complicated that it's going to take longer to set up than actually be effective. But I think if you want to think back to that funnel slide, you want to identify the pain points in your data, and then I'm sure there will be a technology that's applicable no matter how many documents are affected in there or not.
Great. Another question, since I'm not seeing others, I'm just going to throw some out there. As far as on the collection piece or the forensic side, working with the client, what type of AI features or add-ons do you guys utilize and or recommend as good options for the client to implement?
Yeah, Marco, do you want to talk a bit about maybe PII detection at collection?
Yeah, there's a number. It's a great question, Adam. I mean, there's a lot of. It really depends on the use case of the matter itself and what you're looking for. But there's a number of different technologies that can be employed at the onset, early on, so that you can minimize the total population that ultimately gets promoted forward. One of the things that we've been doing quite a bit of late is around cybersecurity, cyber risk, incident response. And what we've done is create a mixture of different collection technologies that can either be on site at the client without the necessity of moving data, where we can put in a collection device, an aggregator to index data, and then be able to categorize based upon whatever documents might have PII or PHI or PCI within them, and then extract only that population that we can promote over. And then off of that, we can then utilize different AI technologies to extract the PII so that we can then promote it through an XLP and into relativity using a customized wrap file so that we can take that notification stage and make it tremendously, like ridiculously more efficient than it has been done previously, right? So from a collections piece, there's things that you can apply internally that can help kind of expedite that process.
All right. Hey, we're at time, so we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for attending, and Marco, Jeannie, and Kit. Fabulous presentation. Thank you so much. I know I learned a lot, and I hope others did as well. And again, if you want to catch the replay, please watch for the video to come through email soon. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.